So good morning and welcome. My name is Reverend Dr. Ron Fox. And so good morning to the Sunday service for the Center for Spiritual Living Space Coast. This would be a good time to turn off phones so we don't have any going off in the middle of the message. And if there's anybody here this morning or that's going to be watching during the week that's never been to a Center for Spiritual Living, we believe there's one God. Many paths to that God, and we're here to love, honor, and support you, no matter what your divine path is. And the Center for Spiritual Living Space Coast is a safe haven for people of all beliefs and lifestyles, whoever you are, and wherever you find yourself on your journey of faith, you're welcome here. Our practitioner this morning is going to be Patrice Rivera, and Edgar Rivera is going to be our reader. So I have a bunch of announcements. Our book group is still meeting Tuesdays, 2:00. And the book we're doing is Fear is a Choice. And I think we've been meeting 3 weeks and we're still on chapter 2. So it's a discussion group. And we really do. We're really having a good time. We are. There's also, I sent out a couple of emails about asking people to fill out pledge cards so we would know as a board what we can expect, how much income we could expect, and see how we, actually see if we're going to make it or not. So I just would ask you to do that. There's some in the back if anybody wants to do it today, and just leave it in the collection basket. Next week is unexpected income, so set the intention this week that unexpected income is going to come into your life next week, and you can share your stories with us and a little bit of your unexpected income. Next week, Becky and I are going to have a sign-up sheet here for a conscious aging class. We're going to pick a date and go with it, and it'll probably be Tuesday evenings from 6 to 8 on Zoom. But we'll have more information for sure next week. Also, our annual meeting is going to be the first Sunday in March 5th. And so we invite all members to please come. And we also have an opening on the board. If anybody is interested in serving on the board, you can come see me or any member of the board to get an idea of what it's like. It's really not an overwhelming piece of work. We meet one Sunday a month for about an hour. There are 2 jobs that really do require time are already taken. So it won't be our treasurer here, and Ed, who's not here today, is our secretary. The only requirements to be on the board, I looked it up, you have to be a member, you have to have taken a year's worth of Science of Mind classes or the equivalent in the judgment of the minister. So I actually do take bribes. I did have one more. Okay, yes. So prior to COVID, we used to have a pre-service meditation from 9:30 to 9:45. And I actually had some people that were interested in redoing it. So we're going to start as of next Sunday. Becky and I will take turns. And I'll just say it'll be a silent meditation. Maybe we'll play some music, but it's not going to be guided. It's going to be silent. So you're going to have to get accustomed to 15 minutes of silence. But we'll start that as of next Sunday. And with that, another song.
It's so wonderful to see all the beautiful, bright, smiling faces. So if you'll just take a deep breath, allow your eyes to close or your gaze to soften. Focus on that heart center within. This prayer goes out to all the angels in the room who are absolutely the instrument of peace for the divine here on this planet. For I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that there is only one. There is only one love, one peace, one harmony, one effervescent everything, always available, always right here, right now. And in that one, I know I have to be. I am one with the one. I breathe that in. And in breathing that in, I let go. I let go of everything that has transpired before I got here, everything that might go on after I leave here. And I stay right here, right now, and that infinite now, the present. It is our present. And in this place, I absolutely know that not only are each and every one of us in this room, in this building, on this planet, but definitely in this room, a blessing, blessed. I know that this service is blessed. I know that each and every word that come out of Reverend Ron's mouth is exactly what our heart needed to hear so that we can take it out into the world and be that instrument of peace for the divine that we all truly are. And for that, I am ever so grateful. I am so grateful for the words of wisdom. I am so grateful for Reverend Ron's heart. I am so grateful for the heart of everyone in this room. And I'm so grateful for knowing the truth. And as I stand in that truth, I let go and allow the divine to do what the divine does. And so it is.
Good morning. My reading this morning is from the Evolutionary Journey, by Barbara Marx Hubbard. For the most part, we of the Western world have been taught to regard ourselves as products of a few thousand years of social political history. While this perspective is not inaccurate, it is clearly short-term and therefore limiting in its implications. In contrast, the evolutionary perspective views us as emergent aspects of some 15 billion years of evolutionary development. In this light, we come to regard ourselves as magnificent, yet unfinished expressions of the guiding intelligence behind evolution. We see ourselves in the midst of change, reaching forward toward unknown potentials. We see that we are not only in process, but that we are the process itself. We are the leading edge of evolutionary transformation. Hence, we now recognize that we can play a significant role in determining a future that is awe-inspiring, if not more so than our evolutionary past has been.
So good morning again. So my topic today is Heaven is at Hand. And I wanted to start with what Ernest Holmes says. And Ernest Holmes, by the way, is the founder for the Centers of Spiritual Living. When he said that the mystics through all ages have said, and I thought to myself, I bet everybody in here woke up today saying, I wonder what the mystics have said through all the ages, right? All of you, I know, that was the first thing Becky said to me when we got up. She poked me in the ribs and said, hey, Ron, do you know what the mystics have said? And I said, you got to come to church and you'll hear. And she said, oh, I'm going to be there. What they said was that heaven is at hand right now, that immortality is at hand right now. And so you and I are as immortal and as spiritual as we are ever going to be. And I just want to stop. If you think about that when Holmes says that mystics through all time and all ages say the same thing, what it always does to me, it says, here are these people, men, mostly men, that didn't know of each other, probably in those times, maybe didn't even hear of each other, and they're all saying the same thing. Has to be a lot more than a coincidence, doesn't it? So one of the things Holmes taught is that we've all learned all we need to know through pain and suffering. And so let me read you something that he wrote. He said, somewhere the walls of experience must be broken down. we must learn that we can transcend our previous experiences and that beyond the finite lies the infinite. And so he's telling us, one of the ways we say it is the past isn't prologue to the present. Spirit's not bound by what happened before. So we can move beyond our current circumstances. In the Bible, somebody, Jesus, somebody, one of the guys, Jesus asked somebody, if your friend came to you knocking on the door at midnight saying, geez, I am really hungry, can you help me out? Would you tell him come back in the morning? And he said, of course you wouldn't. And he also said, that's how God is with us. God wouldn't leave us alone to, be here, that when we turn to God, God always turns back. And there's a beautiful fable that I read years ago about a shoemaker who worked, a blacksmith rather, who worked really hard his entire life. And it was a really good person. But every time the angel of death comes for him, he says, no, can you wait a little longer? I'm helping a neighbor with a project, or I'm helping a friend. He always wants to not go yet because he's helping other people. Finally, he gets tired. And one time when the angel of death comes, he says, I'm ready to go live in the kingdom of heaven. And the angel of death laughs and says, where do you think you've been living all these years? Marcia Sinator is a spiritual writer, and she's written a number of really, really good books. And in one of them, she said that we touch heaven when we make elegant choices, when we have options in our life that we can choose from, like honor, like courage, and like truth. So think if you had a plot of land that you wanted to put a garden on. And so Wayne Muller says, all right, so if you're going to do that, you got to work the land first, right? Probably got to, hoe it, and you got to pick up all the branches and leaves that are on the ground. Might have to break up a bunch of clumps and then rake it or whatever. But what would happen if you stopped there? If that's all you did was the preparation? When you got done with all the preparation, what you would have is a plot of empty land, just in some ways like you started out with. And the point is that once you prepare it, you have to ask the next question, which is, what am I going to grow? What vegetable can I grow that would bring me joy to have it and to eat it? That's the next question. And if we move that over to our life, in our life, it's not enough to just kick the debris out. It's not enough to always be living in the past, trying to do that, trying to respond to that. It's the difference, some author said, between living a repaired life and a life well lived. In a repaired life, we focus on what we see as defective and what we see needs to be fixed. In a life well lived, we go a step beyond that and we plant what we love. We plant seeds, blessings, compassion, love, caring, whatever. And Wayne Muller asks, how do we show our love? How do we really know when somebody loves us? And he says it's by attention. That attention is the physical manifestation of love in our world. That what we put our attention on becomes the center of our life. And so a question we could ask is, what's in the center of your life And where do you tend to put your time and attention? Because by definition, that's what you love. By definition, that's what you love. And Muller also says that we become what we love. So what we give our time and attention to over day by day by day, that's what we eventually become. And so we can ask ourselves, am I becoming the person that I want to become? Carolyn Mays writes about mysticism too, and heaven, and she does it from one of the things I love about what we teach is we bring in all the religions, and Carolyn Mays has a Catholic viewpoint, and she says that as part of our mystical awakening, we need to learn to love our life, every moment of it, the beautiful and the painful, she says, because it's all sacred. It's all sacred. And she said, I thought this was so interesting. She said, it takes great courage to look for God, but it takes more courage to find God. And I thought when I read that, my first question was, why? Okay, because to me, it wasn't self-evident. But when I thought about it, the difference is looking, you know, but when you find God, then you have to make a choice. Perhaps, am I going to change the way I live? Do I have to plant different seeds to get the kind of life I want? And it takes a lot more courage to do that work than to merely seek, you know. And she puts two questions out that we can all, she said, take it into the silence and ask yourself, first question, what is God to me? And the second question, what am I to God? That one's really interesting, isn't it? What am I to God? So I almost never ask Becky to play any kind of music. In fact, I never know what she plays till I see it with you. But this week I asked her to play that last song by Mark Jopson. And I did because I want to tell you a story from a book written by Kent Nurborn, who is just a fabulous writer, really writes from his heart. And the title of this particular book is Make Me an Instrument of Your Peace. And the chapter that I'm going to tell you the story on is from the verse, where there is sadness, joy. So it's the prayer of St. Francis, and he's basically saying, where there is sadness, let me bring joy. So here's the story. At a different point in his life, Kent Nurborn's had an interesting life, but he was a cab driver. And one morning, 2 o'clock in the morning-ish, he gets a call to go to this address and to pick somebody up. When he gets to the address, it's pitch dark except for one tiny light. And in his mind, he's thinking, is this a safe place for a cab driver to be at roughly 2:30 in the morning? But he decides, his intuition tells him to do it. So he goes and he knocks on the door, and he hears a frail little woman's voice saying, I'll be right there. And in a few minutes, this little old lady in her 80s comes out, puts her suitcase in, and gives him an address and where she's going to. And she says to him, can you please go through the downtown? And he says, that's not the fastest route. And she said, that's okay. I'm going to hospice. I have no family. And my doctor told me to go there because I don't have very much time left. So Kent reached over and he turns the meter off. And he wrote in the next 2 hours, they drove all over. She took them to, she took him, oh, she showed him a building where years before she had been the elevator operator. And she took him to a neighborhood where when her husband and she were first married, that's the first place they lived in. And then she took him to a warehouse, which when she was a young girl was a ballroom, and she used to go dancing there all the time. So they went around for all of her memories, kind of. And then he said, as the sun was starting to come up, she got tired and she said, "It's time, let's go." And when he pulled up, they must have been expecting her, he said, because 2 orderlies ran out with a wheelchair. And they put her in a wheelchair, and Kent goes over to her, and she offers him money, and he refuses it. And he bends down and he hugs her. And when he hugs her, she whispers in his ear, "You gave an old lady a moment of joy. Thank you." He writes that for the rest of the day, he didn't pick up any fares. And he could hardly speak because he kept thinking over and over again what she whispered in his ear. "You gave an old lady a moment of joy. Thank you." And he said he didn't think in his entire life he had done anything more important. That was the most important thing he did, which was to bring a little bit of heaven on earth to a lady who was dying. So I want to tell you one more example of that, and you'll see it's in the opposite direction. So there was a psychologist, a woman psychologist who used to run, and she found the trail she was running, she would meet up with a psychiatrist. So it's a psychologist and a psychiatrist, and they would run together. And then she got cancer. And she stopped running for a while, and she went, through all of the treatments that people go through. And when she started to run again, the psychiatrist had taken another trail to run, okay? And then she called, and he never got in touch with her. And she called him, and he refused to take her phone call. He didn't call her back. And about a year or so later, she decided to take another trail. And sure enough, there he is. So she catches up with him. And she said, "Why didn't you contact me? Why didn't you say something?" And this guy's a psychiatrist. And you know what he said? He said, "I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to say." And somebody else asked her, what would you have liked to have heard if he would have gotten back to you? And she said, "Oh, I heard you had a tough year. How are you doing?" She said, some simple human thing that he could have said to me. And I shared that one because it doesn't take very much to make somebody joyful or to feel like there's heaven on earth. Wouldn't she have loved to have a phone call from somebody that cared? My point is, again, we don't have to do handstands to bring love and joy and compassion into somebody else's life. Holmes said that Jesus always said the kingdom of heaven is at hand, and the only thing that stops us from entering the kingdom of heaven is our own lack of faith. And so we kind of have a choice. Think about this. If our life isn't going the way we want it to go, we can kind of think to ourselves, well, it's the luck of the draw, not my fault, and we could always blame lots of other people. Or we could say, I'm not really liking what's showing up in my life, but I know I'm in control of it. And if I don't like it, I can take the steps to bring something else into my life, to do something else. Dan Millman, who's a spiritual writer, who was in the Olympics, he said that free will is both a blessing and a curse because we have choice. And he said, so the choices you make today are what your future is going to look like. And he said, so we can't always control our circumstances, but we can always control our response to the circumstances in our life. So I love this saying by Meister Eckhart, who said, the eyes with which I see God are the same eyes with which God sees me. So I want to end with a story by Jack Kornfield, a Buddhist teacher, who his dad was dying, and Jack was sitting at his dad's bedside, and his dad, even though he was a professional, I think he might have been a scientist, was a very violent and abusive person. He was paranoid, and it was really difficult to be around him. But Jack said that he had come to peace with his dad, and he loved him. And his dad was afraid of dying. And so when Jack got kind of pooped and said, I need to go get some sleep, his dad begged him not to go, but to just stay with me and hold my hand. So we stayed with them for days, holding his dad's hand until his dad died. And this is what he wrote, and this is what I want to end with today. He said, perhaps this is the best we can do, to help when we can, to witness each other with kindness, to offer our presence, to show the trust we have in life. Spiritual life is not about knowing much, but about loving much. So thank you for being here. God bless you, and have a great week. And if the rest of us could repeat the prosperity affirmation in the bulletin, if we could do it together. I live in a consciousness of good, divine love, blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, God. Hey, Jen, you missed some people, I think.
Sorry.
Good.
He was excused.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I can't tell who's on Zoom. Is Ginny on Zoom?
She was. Oh, if there's your name.
Okay, so this is a point in the service when I would do a closing prayer. And I want to do something a little different today. One of our practitioners, Ginny Panic, volunteered a couple of weeks ago to write a prayer for the Center for Spiritual Living Space Coast. And I just got it the other day. And it's really beautiful. She did a great job. So I thought I would use this as our closing prayer, and we'll figure out some way to get it to everybody. So if you can perhaps say it once a day for us. Okay, there is only one source, one power, one God. It is all powerful, all good, and ever available. This source operates as the Center for Spiritual Living Space Coast. This center is a divine idea in the mind of God. We are a vibrant, growing, thriving center, attracting loving, caring, sharing, and prosperous people. This center attracts people from all lifestyles, all age groups, people from near and far, both physically present and virtual. Our center abounds with the joy of living, the air of possibility. Thinking together, we are changing minds, hearts, and consciousness to embrace a world that works for all. Living full out, all our needs are met, granting us the pleasure to give lavishly from our bounty. Believing in the unity of all life, we give and receive because it is our nature to do so. With complete faith and absolute trust, we release this treatment into the great I am. Together we know that all is moving for our highest good, and so it is. She's a good prayer writer, huh? So now if we could, we'll stand and do our closing song and then the closing affirmation, and then we can hang out together.